All right. Welcome everyone. Holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 17. Again, we're going holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 17. We are in verse still in verse 11. So here the Torah says again about eating blood, ki nefesh basar b'dami, v'ani nusativ lachem al mizbeach l'chaper al nafshosechem, ki adamu b'nefesh yechaper. So here again, the Torah says, the life of the flesh and the blood, I've given it to you upon the altar to make a atonement for your souls, blood's life that makes atonement. Right? So we've been speaking about blood and forbiddenness of blood. So we're in the middle of the Rabbeinu Bachai, and the Rabbeinu Bachai was going on the Ramban, right? This long Ramban, and he said before that before eating meat from the time of Noah, God allowed us to eat meat, but really before we should have been, we're vegetarian, right? In other words, it was forbidden to kill animals for the sake of food. Again, we're only eating grasses, fruits, vegetables. So again, the vegans may, have a point where they're going to say that basically, from the beginning of time, we really should have been vegetarian. You want to tell me God allowed Noah, and his generation, and afterwards to eat meat. Okay. God understood the desire of man, right, to eat meat. So you could say, well, if God knows past, present, future, so didn't God know and understand that man was going to want to eat meat? Very good. Yeah, he obviously understood that. Nonetheless, at the beginning, God says you should only eat fruits and vegetables. And then until came Noah, God made permissible eating animals, but still allowed to use animals for our own needs, for our own benefit, as long as you don't abuse them. Right? So we said by Noahites as well that it's forbidden to what do you call it, hunt animals for sports. Eating them is permissible. Now, if you had no choice, you had to hunt them because you were starving, different issue, right? But you would not be allowed to hunt them for sports. For sure, it's forbidden for Jews. Also, it would be cruel as well for non-Jews, right? As we've spoken about, so even for non-Jews, hunting for sports would be forbidden. So comes along the Rabbeinu Bachai, and the Rabbeinu Bachai says, first of all, again, we said that according after Noah, God allowed us to eat meat. Very good. Allowed us to eat meat, but he says only the body, only the flesh, not the blood, right? Not the soul. So it's forbidden, right? If that is true, says the Rabbeinu Bachai, if that's true, then blood's still forbidden. Blood goes back to its original forbiddenness. You're going to tell me God allowed us to eat meat. Very good. He didn't allow us to eat blood. He didn't allow us to eat the soul of the animal, which is in the blood, which we've been speaking about. Very good. So therefore, it's still forbidden. Still forbidden to eat blood. Now, there's another reason. Says the Rabbeinu Bachai. Again, a lot of this is the Ramban, right? But he does add a few things here. And he says another reason is because the blood is the soul of the animal, right? Just like the blood for us, that's where the lowest part of the soul is, right? Connects the body to the soul, so to speak. Now, the animal only has one aspect of the soul, as we mentioned many times, the nefesh behemoth. That is the animalistic part of the soul. Very good. Very good. Everybody has it, right? Jews, non-Jews, male, female, right? But again, the soul of the animal is in the blood, and therefore you can't eat it. So therefore, he says, to the Rebbeinu B'chai, you're not allowed to mix in his nature with our nature. So Rebbeinu B'chai is telling you, big novelty here, right? Rebbeinu B'chai is telling you, essentially, that why is it forbidden? Because you're eating the soul of the animal. And that's going to have an effect, right? Again, have an effect on Jews. Remember, it wouldn't necessarily apply to non-Jew, which we said way back. And again, the Kli Yakar in Leviticus Chapter 10 says when it comes to kashrus of animals and eating non-kosher animals, a non-Jew can eat them. Not a problem. Why? Why is it not a problem? Because we see, says Kli Yakar, that a non-Jew eats all kinds of things, creepy crawly things, doesn't affect them in a negative way, maybe except for eating the bats in Wuhan, but we're not going to go there. Very good. So even if that's true, it doesn't affect them, right? It doesn't affect them in a negative way. Why would non-Jews keep kosher? Right? Simple question. Why would non-Jews keep kosher? They wouldn't. Wouldn't make sense. I hear from a lot of people, keeping kosher, eating clean animals, this and that, but doesn't affect you. A Jew, the Gemara says, it's betam to mesalev. What does it do? It makes the soul, it dulls the soul. It makes the person not want to keep Torah mitzvahs. Makes them, I'll think of the word in a second, right? But it makes them not want to keep Torah mitzvahs. Apathetic, that's the word. Makes them apathetic. Not to want to keep Torah mitzvahs. Now, the Gemara says that's why Jews are not allowed to eat non-kosher animals. Very good. What about, so what about non-Jews? Doesn't affect them. Right? So a non-Jew will say, but I feel better, I feel this when, I stay away from quote unquote unclean animals. But it's like eating a placebo. A placebo is like, eating a sugar cube or eating something you think it has one effect, doesn't do anything. Right? You take a pill, it's going to cure you from whatever aches and pains or whatever that a person has. And really, they're doing an experiment. The pill you took is a placebo, it's a sugar pill. Now, a person's going to say, hi, but it healed me, made me feel better, so can't say what it did because it's only a sugar pill. Right? So same thing. Non-Jew wants to eat it. Right? Someone here says ritual suitability. What's ritual suitability got to do with anything? Right? Non-kosher meat doesn't affect a non-Jew, so why would non-Jew do it? That's exactly what the Kli Yakar says. Doesn't affect them. Yeah. So the Kli Yakar says if it doesn't affect them, they're not going to keep it. They're not doing suitability, non-suitability. It's irrelevant. Right? 100%, totally irrelevant. Right? Who cares suitability? A person feels whatever they feel. Does that matter? Doesn't do anything for them. Totally doesn't do for them. Right? Doesn't kashrus mean ritual still? No, it doesn't. It means ritual slaughter. That's what it means, to shecht an animal. Yeah? That's the word to shecht, shin chet tet, means ritual slaughter. Kashrus doesn't mean ritual slaughter. Right? How would we define kashrus today? It's a good question. Right? Kosher means I'm allowed to eat it. That's what it means. I'm allowed to eat. It doesn't mean ritual stability. It means I'm allowed to eat it. Right? So if an animal is kosher, right? I mean, there are different levels of kashrus there. Let's say, if it's glad kosher, what does glad kosher mean? Literally, that there's nothing wrong with the lungs. No puncture, no issue with the lungs. Yeah, could a person eat the meat if there's a little perforation in the lungs? No. All right, the lung, if there's a perforation in the lungs, makes it treif. Now, if it's, if there's no other issues, we'll say it's glad. Very good. Kosher means it's okay to eat. That's what it means. Yeah. But eating a clean or unclean animal, as being kosher, that doesn't apply to non-Jews. Doesn't apply to non-Jews. Now, people could say, well, I want to eat better food, quote unquote. There's a lot of kosher food. I have plenty of it on shop. It's totally unhealthy. Totally unhealthy. So kashrus organizations are telling you that you're allowed to eat it as a Jew. Now, a non-Jew, could they eat it? Not a problem. Totally not a problem. Yeah. So therefore, I would ask the question again, according to this Kli Yakar, why would a non-Jew eat it? It's a placebo. Right? There's famous stories, Yosef Ber Soloveitchik, a blessed memory, grandson of Chaim Brisker. And a woman came to him and she wanted to wear a towel. She wanted to wear a prayer shawl. So, he said, okay, here's a prayer shawl. She goes home, comes back 2 weeks later, says, you don't understand. I want to thank you so much. It really, brought me to higher spiritual levels, helped me pray better, this and that. And Rav Yosef Ber said, I don't know what you're talking about. So don't you remember you gave me this prayer shawl to wear? He said, oh, that. He said, that was like an overextended towel with a bunch of fringes on it. Because the woman's like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? He said, I took one of the fringes and ripped it out. It's not a kosher towel. Right? It's not a kosher prayer shawl over here. So, in other words, wearing it's no mitzvah. It's nothing. It's like a piece of cloth with some fringes on it. Okay. But it's not a prayer shawl. Right? In other words, once the whole thing's invalidated, it's invalidated. 100% it's invalidated. So if it's invalidated, she's not getting the mitzvah. She's not getting the benefit. So she asks him, I don't understand. I felt this and I felt that. Spiritually, he goes, I don't know what you felt. He says, but you didn't feel the power of the mitzvah. That's impossible. Why is that impossible? So Rav Yosef Ber said, it's impossible because this talus is invalid. I invalidated the talus. So it doesn't have the status of a prayer shawl. It's a cloth with a bunch of fringes on it. Now, someone's going to say, but she felt something. She felt something deep inside, something spiritual. How do you explain that? It's not part of the mitzvah. What she felt, can't answer. Right? Can't answer. But it's not because of the power of the mitzvah. How do I know it's not the power of the mitzvah? Because she didn't get the mitzvah. The prayer shawl was invalid. So whatever she felt is like a placebo effect. So it's the same thing. Non-Jew eats kosher. Now, if they're preparing for conversion, good. Still not going to affect them. But if, at some point they have to start eating kosher, very good. Could be the day before they have to start eating kosher. Right? I would say prepare before that, but even the day before is good enough. Why? Because again, it doesn't affect a non-Jew like a Jew. That's clear. Right? The Gemara makes that clear. Kli Yakar makes that clear. Not only that, the Kli Yakar says, why would a non-Jew do it? A non-Jew is only going to keep things that make sense logically. According to the Torah, this doesn't make sense. Well, this totally doesn't make sense. And not only that, it doesn't affect them. So if there's no benefit, says Kli Yakar over there in Leviticus chapter 10, if there's no benefits, why would they do it? Because they come on, today's a different generation. You have plenty of non-Jews who want to be like Jews. Forget Messianics. They want to be like Jews. Right? They want to keep kosher. Why can't I keep kosher? It's like swallowing a sugar pill. Doesn't do anything for you. Right? So this is the problem. Right? Why is it a problem? Because non-Jews straddle the line. Some of them. And they say, well, I'm not really being like a Jew, but I want to keep kosher. It's pure meat. Right? It's pure meat, but it doesn't affect you. Right? You come back to the same problem. It has no effect on you whatsoever. So then, if you're not trying to be like a Jew, why would you do it? There's no benefit. That's the whole point. Right? Kli Yakar says if there's no benefit, why would a non-Jew do it? Very good question. So you get these super Noahides out there that'll say, I can do things just like a Jew, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not really a Jew, and I'm not going to convert. Okay, so I do all these things that don't apply to you. Oh, you tell me. The Noahide laws, there's not very much ritual. There's not very much prayer, right? How can you partake in the holidays? A lot of good questions. Some things you're allowed to do to a point. But don't straddle the line. A Jew's a Jew, a non-Jew's a non-Jew. Stay a non-Jew. You want to convert, then do what you need to do to convert. You don't want to convert, you can still eat shrimp, not a problem. Right? But don't straddle both lines. I see this all the time. Right? They, oh, but come on, eating pure animals is good for me. It had no effect. Does eating a sugar pill have an effect on you? No. It has no effect. Zero effect. You want to do it? Okay. Is that going to draw you closer to God? Nope. Why not? Because it doesn't affect you. Over here, he's telling you, oh, what's the problem? Another reason is, if you eat the blood of an animal, that blood's going to be mixed with your blood. It's like you're eating the soul of that animal, and that soul now becomes part of you. That's the problem, right? Science hasn't proven that you're going to, take on these character traits or whatever. Doesn't matter. The point is you're eating the blood. What's in the blood? The animal. The soul of the animal. Right? The soul of an animal. So that you're not allowed to do. They're 100% you're not allowed to. Someone here points out, just as a side point, someone asked about eating shrimp. Why would someone eat it? It's cockroach of the sea. Very good. You know what? Nobody cares. Nobody cares. It's a scavenger. People don't think about what they eat. They don't think about what they eat at all. They'll just stick it in their mouth. Doesn't matter. You could put dog meat in there. Still meat. Cat meat. Still meat. Go to Southeast Asia, they'll eat anything that moves. Yeah. They don't care. Cats, dogs. They had a problem. They were building up a city here many, many years ago, in a religious city. And they had a problem. A serious problem with cats. Yeah, they brought in Taiwanese workers. No problem with cats anymore. Yeah, you can say, oh, that's gross. I don't know, different parts of the world, they eat these things. Right? If they put a burger in front of you, you didn't know it was cat meat. You had no idea. Cat meat, kangaroo meat, dog meat's meat. Person maybe can tell the difference in the texture. I don't know, maybe. But who cares? It's meat is meat, right? Oh, no. People say, I would never eat dog meat. I would never eat cat meat. Nobody cares. People eat clams, right? I grew up in Boston, big thing. People eat clams. Yeah, those are pretty gross. If you think about what it is, people just eat them. They don't care. Stick all this garbage in their body, right? A big thing is lobster. Yeah, how do you cook up a lobster? Yeah, this is totally cruel. Be totally forbidden for Jews and non-Jews, right? If Jews were sure to eat it, but even if they didn't eat it, yeah, how do they cook it? Alive. They boil it alive. Anything worse than that? That's pretty cruel. Right? That'd be forbidden for a non-Jew also, even if it's permissible to eat. It's forbidden to do that. Right? But you're right. It's cockroach of the sea. That's not going to stop anyone from eating it. Right? You would think maybe it would. Maybe. Right? But people don't care. They'll stick whatever. It's tasty. You put sauce on it. All kinds of different ways to cook shrimp. Very good. Anybody care? Anybody really care what it is? I don't think anyone cares. Tastes good. It doesn't matter. But yeah, it's a good point. All right, let's go a bit further here. So it says, oh, you're not allowed to eat the blood because you're eating the blood of the soul. The blood of the soul mixed in with your own blood again. It's going to affect the Jew, not a non-Jew. And we, says the Rabbeinu B'chai, we, the ones that accepted the Torah, our bodies need to be pure. Our bodies need to be pure, right, in order to accept the Torah, in order to keep the Torah, in order to keep our minds clear. in order to understand Torah. So if your mind is not clear because of the garbage you put in your body, this is the whole point. You can't learn Torah. That's one of the reasons anyone coming back to Judaism as a secular Jew, what's the first thing they'll tell them besides keeping Shabbos is what? Keep kosher. Why keep kosher? Because you won't be able to listen to Torah if you don't keep kosher. The Torah will go out, right? I wouldn't say go out, it won't go in, right? Another thing that can stop a person from learning Torah, especially a male circumcision, the barrier, right? There's a barrier. Everyone agrees that piece of flesh has to be taken off. Now, sometimes this is agreement over the years, between the doctors. Some say it's good against cancer, it's not good against cancer, whatever it is, right? But it's a barrier, it has to be taken off, right? Everyone agrees. I mean, the Torah is pretty clear, has to be taken off. Yeah. If it's not taken off, that Jew can't learn Torah. They won't be able to learn Torah. Many, many stories of people very bright, even brilliant. Torah didn't go. Right? They say Torah is a different discipline. You need, a different type of thinking and whatever, maybe. But almost in every case, if the person was able to learn other things, right, physics and who knows what, at a very high level, why can't they learn Torah? So the question that's always asked, certainly by a guy, is, did you ever have circumcision? And usually 99% of the time, the answer is no. And once the answer is no, you know the reason. Right? Torah should go in, but there are barriers. There can be barriers. So he's saying over here, you have to have pure mind, pure thoughts, pure bodies. You need pure bodies for pure thoughts. You need pure thought to listen to Torah, right? To be able to understand Torah. If you're putting this garbage in your system, you won't be able to understand Torah. Again, that's by a Jew. And therefore, says Rabbeinu Bachai, we are commanded over here in order to be spiritual people, and we have to live and have compassion. We have to have compassion for others. We cannot be cruel. Rabbeinu Bachai is saying another thing. It's not just, you're going to be eating the soul of the animal. The Rabbeinu Bachai over here says as well, you're being cruel. How are you being cruel? Because if you eat the blood of the animal, it's like you're giving birth to your soul cruelty. And you're going to be conceited. And your nature is going to be conceited. And you're going to be much closer to being like an animal. Now, Rabbeinu Bachai over here echoing what the Ramban said. And again, maybe science has no proof for this, but it doesn't really matter because plenty of things science hasn't proven. But he's telling you clear as day, black on white, right? You'll take my word for translating over here. But he's saying black on white over here, I don't have to be cruel. By eating the blood of an animal, eating that soul of the animal, you're bringing that animal inside of yourself. And that's being cruel. That's going to cause you to be cruel. That's going to cause you to be gaivadik, to be conceited. That's going to cause you to be conceited, right? And you're going to be close to being an animal itself. So what does the Rabbeinu Bachai here say? He's telling you clear as day, a Jew that eats this stuff is going to take on negative qualities of that animal. Essentially, that Jew is going to be cruel. He's got an extra dose of cruelty inside of himself. Why? How does he know that? Because he says the thing that you eat, where does it go? It goes in the blood. Very good. Where does the blood go? In the body. It goes in the flesh of the body. So therefore, he says, you're going to take on that nature. You're going to take on the nature of that animal. And if it's a predator, it'll help you to be a predator. Yeah, it'll help you with other bad character traits. You're going to tell me Someone's going to tell me, come on, aren't animals programmed? They're programmed, you're right. But you got plenty of animals out there that stalk and eat other animals. That's why we don't eat predators, because that'll have an effect on us. That'll make us cruel. Someone's going to tell me, come on, science has never proven it. But he's telling you something from logic here. He's not telling you, oh, the Gemara says like this and that says like that. No, he's telling you if you're eating the blood and the soul is actually in the blood, where does that go? Where does that blood go in the body? Well, we just gave it away. It goes in the body, right? Goes in a person's bloodstream into the body itself. Direct. Right? It's not something that's, takes a long time to digest. The blood goes straight in. Has an effect. Right? So that's what he says. It returns to the flesh in the body, and it gives way to all these bad character traits. And he says, and he says further, he says blood is not like other things that change by digestion, right? Other things change, right? Because the Ramban over there says that blood doesn't need to be digested like other foods. Other foods get broken down. Very good. Blood doesn't need to be broken down. Blood goes straight in. Right? That's why it says that the soul is in the flesh and the blood. Right? Because all the flesh has the blood. Right? And you don't want to mix. You don't want to mix the blood that's going to get you spiritually cut off. And the blood's we're supposed to use to atone on the altar. Right? So this is another thing. Right? Why shouldn't a Jew eat blood? A Jew eats blood, spiritually gets cut off. What does it mean spiritually gets cut off? So we mentioned this many times. Either the person dies young, his kids die young, right? In the parent's lifetime. Right? They don't have a portion of the world to come. But essentially, what do I have here? If a person is spiritually cut off, now, spiritually cut off can mean they die before the age of 60. Right? Now, if they die before the age of 60, that could be they got spiritually cut off. But what does spiritually cut off mean in general? You see that there are people that can live longer. Even if they're spiritually cut off. Person ain't chametz on Passover. They ate any leavened product on Passover. Punishment is you get spiritually cut off. Very good. So even if that's true, but if they live till their 70s, 80s, 90s, what happened to being spiritually cut off? Yeah, so you have to see how they live their lives. Most people, most important question they'll ever ask in their lifetime, do I put ketchup, mustard, or relish on my hot dog? That's where they're holding. That means their soul is like, it's demolished. It's like their soul is like suffocating. So it's like their soul has no connection. They have no connection to spirituality, like most American Jews today, or Jews around the world. Most Jews around the world won't pick on America. Everywhere. You got in South America, you got, intermarriage, 70, 80% different places, even higher. Even some places in America is like that. Right? So what do you have over here? Why don't they care? Why is it not about proving things today? Say, I could prove to you why the Torah is true. Why don't people care? They're apathetic. Why are they apathetic? Because they got this garbage in their system. This makes them apathetic. Yeah. Being spiritually cut off means they have no connection to Torah mitzvahs. They absolutely have no connection to Torah mitzvahs. None. They have no connection. So that's the first thing. First thing that will tell somebody, as a Jew coming back to Judaism, is stop eating non-kosher. Because if not, you won't be able to hear Torah. Be impossible, or next to impossible to learn or to hear Torah. That's why most secular Jews, they don't want to hear. They just want to make fun. They just want to belittle. They want to say all kinds of things to make themselves look better. Very good. What's the problem? Because they got all this garbage in their system, contaminates the body. But again, that's by a Jew, not by a non-Jew. Right? A non-Jew has no effect, like a placebo. And so all these reasons comes along the Rabbeinu Bachai, and he says that's going to the Ramban. That's the Rambam we saw before, but he flushes it out a little bit more. Comes on the Rambam, says Rabbeinu Bachai, and his Tamei HaMitzvahs, and the reasons for the mitzvahs he brings down in the guide for the perplexed and more Nevuchim, part 3, chapter 46, that the Ramban also quotes. And he says, what's the reason you don't eat blood? Right? Not because of what the Ramban said. Not because it has an effect, it mixes in our body, and it causes all kinds of other problems. That's not the issue. He says, what's the issue? He says a person should stay away from it, so a person will not want to come in contact with demons. Right? Why did they drink blood? Right? Why? Because when the Jews came out of Egypt, they were experts in this wisdom because they got it from the Egyptians. What would they do? Right? The Egyptians were steeped, in these type of things. And what would they do? They would go to a certain place, make a ditch, I guess like make a pathway, in the dirt, and they would throw blood there. They would throw blood in this pathway. Why? What would be the purpose of doing that? Sounds kind of strange. Right? Why would they do that? Because demons would come and gather there. They would gather there. And if they wanted to know about the future, what was going to happen in the future, they'd ask the demons. And that's why it's forbidden. Right? That's why it's forbidden. And that's why the Torah says, don't eat blood. Right? We're going to see later. Chapter 19, verse 26. We'll get there one day. Don't know when. But we'll get there. Because the people sinned very much. They ate blood. Why? They eat blood for this reason. Says the Rambam. And therefore the Torah says not only to eat blood. Right? Because the whole point is the person eats blood is going to destroy their minds. Not going to be able to think straight. Not going to be able to think in Torah. Right? So to speak. And that's the reason it's forbidden. And Torah says shouldn't do it. You have to be pure. And where's the blood supposed to go? It's supposed to go on the altar for the sake of atonement. And, they use it for idolatry as well, as going to be explained. As explained later, I guess it's Samuel Aleph, explained over there as well. It was used for idolatry. As it mentions by giving over their kids to Moloch, to that idolatry of Molech, which is later chapter 20 verse 6. So he says that's what the Rambam says. Now the reason you don't eat blood, one very simple reason, because they mastered this thing that the Egyptians did, right? When they came out of Egypt, also in order to know the future. In order to know the future. So comes along the Rabbeinu Bachai, as the Ramban here states as well, that the Rabbeinu Bachai says, well, that's the main reason. That the whole problem of coming in contact with demons. That's why they did it. And the whole goal is to know the future, so to speak. So each time when the Torah says not allowed to eat blood, should mention this reason. Should mention clear as day this reason. Right? Should. So the Rabbeinu Bachai says, like the Ramban, okay, that's very good. Right? Not going to reject that as a reason. Okay. Right? Maybe that's what they did. What's the problem? As we'd say in the vernacular in Hebrew, Iker Chosamino Sefer, something missing here. Something missing from this book. What's missing? If you look at what the Torah says, Torah doesn't make any reference at all. In any of these verses that says don't eat blood, what does that have to do with demons? Doesn't mention anything, not even close. Right? So he says the language of the verses don't say it like that. That's an obvious question. The Rambam, obvious question. Where do you see that? Where do you see that in the verses? Even though he says it might be true. It very well might be true, okay. But show me in the text. Show me where it says it. Therefore, it's forbidden to eat blood, he says, for all the reasons we wrote above, i.e., mixes in the body is going to affect you in a negative way for Jews. Right? So it doesn't have to do with demons. Maybe people did that, says the Rabbeinu B'chai, and says the Ramban. Maybe. But that can't be the reason over here. It can't be the reason because the Torah doesn't say that. The Torah doesn't even, don't even hint to what the Torah says over here. To what he says. Right? Not even close. Not even close. Right? On my best day or worst day. You have to be like smashed in a certain way to say that's the verse. That's what it means in the verse. No offense to the Rambam. Yeah, but he's saying that that's not what the verse tells me. The verse says you can't eat it. Doesn't say anything about demons. We're missing something here. So he says, it's like I said before, all the reasons I mentioned before. So he says, I also have to explain, right? I'll finish up this Bein B'chai and I'll take any questions. He says, I have to explain because the Torah says, right? The Torah says later in verse 14, the Torah says, Ki nefesh habasar b'damu, the soul of the flesh is in the blood. And it says again in verse 14, right, as we said before, Ki nefesh habasar damo benafshahu, the soul of the flesh is in the blood. Same thing. Both verses are telling me that the soul is in the blood and the blood is in the soul, and they get mixed together. They get mixed together just like if I took wine. He says I mix it with water. The water and the wine mixed together is a mixture of what? Of water and wine. But what does it look like? Wine. Right, depends how much diluted, but it's going to look like wine, right, in general. But each one is attached to the other. You put water and wine, they mix together. You put blood together, that's the whole point. You put blood together and blood together of the animal, they mix together. They're going to mix together. And that's why it says as well, it says, Dam kol basar lo tochelu, ki nefesh kol basar damoyu. The blood of the flesh, translation here, blood of the flesh you don't eat, because the soul is in the flesh, and that's where the blood is. So you're going to have a mixture again of blood that's going to be forbidden. That the whole point is the blood is in the soul. Sorry, the blood is in the flesh, right? Or it's really in the soul, right? Is in the soul itself, which is in the flesh, and they don't separate. So in other words, if the blood essentially is in the soul, and the soul is in the flesh, and a person eats blood from an animal, what happens to the blood of the animal? It goes into the bloodstream of a person, that goes into the flesh of a person, and there's a mixture, right? Your blood is going to be mixed with the blood of this animal. And you don't see blood without the soul and not the soul without blood, right? Just like a person's created, right? Everybody's got a body, right? You don't see one without the other, right? You can't have blood without the soul and vice versa. The blood is what keeps the soul around. If you don't have blood, or the soul goes out, right, the person dies. You have to have a certain level of blood in the system, otherwise you die, right? It has to be a minimal amount over here. But you don't have one without the other. They're both mixed. And since he says the blood is in the soul, right, that's called dam shoises, right, specific term, the blood that flows, right, it doesn't go out. It doesn't just go out straight away. What happens? The blood, he says, first of all, it starts out black, and then afterwards it becomes red, right? And it doesn't go out, right, necessarily so far, right? In the end, the blood that's left goes in. So what does that mean over here? He says that what happens to the blood here? So the blood itself makes it into the body, right? Makes it into the body. But the person can only live if they have enough blood. If they're down to their last quart of blood, right? The last, a small amount of blood, they'll die. Right? They have to have a minimal amount for the soul to live. Right? I guess, Havdil, make this a big distinction there. It's like a fish in water. You take the fish out of water, for sure it's gonna die. But you put them in enough water, the fish can still live. Right? Probably eventually it'll die. But let's say you give it enough water, it can live for a long time. Okay. So if you have enough blood in the system, you have to have a minimal amount. Once that you don't have that minimal amount, that's why a person lost a lot of blood, they do all kinds of transfusions, right? Because otherwise you'll die because you're lacking blood. So there's this minimal amount of blood that has to be in the system for you to live. If you don't have the minimal amount of blood, you'll die. Blood, right? You will die. And it makes sense because he's telling you the blood and the soul are intertwined. If I don't have enough blood, the person will die, right? The soul will go out. The soul can't live in the body if the body doesn't have enough blood, right? That's what he's telling you over here also. And therefore he says, but all the blood, the first blood is called, blood that comes out is dam hanefesh, blood of the soul, right? But it's not the soul itself, right? Don't make the mistake, oh, you tell me the soul goes out, right? And you have to have a certain amount of blood, so it must be the blood is the soul. No, right? It's not the soul itself. Because the person's only going to die when he gets that minimal, when he has that minimal amount of blood left, right? When he has that minimal amount of blood left, right? That's what's going to happen, right? That's what's going to happen. So survive, right? If he's got that minimal amount left, right? But again, the blood is not, it's not the soul itself. The soul is in the blood, but doesn't mean the blood is the soul. And he says, last thing over there, he says, all right, what about being spiritually cut off? Now we don't have to mention about this blood going out, because even if it goes out a little bit, still it's cut off, right? It doesn't matter how much necessarily goes out, but at some point, the since the soul is not the blood itself, but again, even if blood goes out, it can also be spiritually cut off, even if not all the blood, goes out. So this is a pretty crucial thing. A pretty crucial thing that the blood itself is not the soul. Soul is in the blood. But you have to have a certain amount of blood for the soul to live. If you don't have enough blood for the soul to live, the soul will not live. Right? It will be, it will be impossible. So the Rebbeinu B'chai says, don't make the mistake. Don't make the mistake and say, oh, we've said many times, the soul is in the blood, the soul's in the blood, very good. Does that mean the blood is the soul? No. Because even if I have a certain amount of blood there, right? If I have the minimum amount of blood there, the soul can still live. If I don't have enough blood there, the soul goes out. So the soul is not the blood, right, per se. It's in the blood, right? It doesn't mean it's the blood itself. That's what he's telling you. And in any case, being spiritually cut off, there's so many, I can speak about this for days. There's so many Jews out there know nothing about Judaism, don't want to learn anything about Judaism. It's like their soul is fasting. Their soul, is dead, right? Literally is dead, right? Meaning that, what are people going to talk about? What are people going to think about? Things that don't matter, right? Ketchup, mustard, relish on my hot dog. Where are people holding and say, come on, not everyone's that shallow. A lot of people are. A lot of people are. They don't care about anything. They just care about filling their stomach. How much can you eat? Right? Thinking about lunch when when you're in the middle of breakfast, thinking about dinner when you're in the middle of lunch, what you're going to watch and where you're going to go and what you're going to buy and different things, right? There's no meaning. All these things have no meaning. Mentioned before, person acquires all these possessions. Mentions the Pirkei Avos, whatever possessions they may be. Who's going to get benefit from it in the end? Not you. You get some benefit. But imagine a person worked their whole lives, built his dream home, maybe, had another house somewhere else or whatever, one of the spouses dies. Yeah, they remarry. Who gets the benefit? The spouse had nothing to do with it, right? Or it's going to go to their kids, right? So people are busy collecting things, buying things, whatever. Everyone according to their ability, very good. But it's not going to last. You're not going to take it with you. Someone else is going to use it. So what's the point? We're all busy doing it, right? As I always say, people, busy redoing their bathrooms. Okay. But in the end, who's going to benefit? It's not the person. They get some benefit, not entire benefit. The benefit's going to the next generation or whoever it's going to go to. And even if it doesn't, how much benefit did you get? 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. But you worked so long to do it. That's the kicker. Person worked all these, you say, yeah, I worked hard, invested right, did other things, was able to do this, very good. Right? They work like dogs. How long can they enjoy it for? And it's not going to be to their benefit. Right? It's going to go elsewhere eventually. Yeah. But people get caught up in it. People definitely get caught up in it. Yeah, questions. Let me see, there are questions here. What about raising conditions for animals? Oh, someone asked, very good. Raising conditions for animals, you got to treat them properly. Yeah, can't abuse them. Right? They also have to, animals have rights, as well. So, you have to raise them properly as well. There halakha is guiding this also. You can't just raise them any way you want. And there are plenty of things that a person can do that'd be cruel. That certainly would be cruel, but you have an obligation to raise them properly. Right? And like I'll take it one step further. What about let's say kosher food? Someone once told me, I'm not going to mention the company. Someone once told me they're studying, I don't know, be a pastry chef or whatever. Went into a certain factory of a company that was kosher. Yeah. Now, they made cakes and cookies and other things, whatever it was. And the person said, it might be kosher, but they should have been shut down. The FDA, should have shut them down because you had flies all over the place, other things, going on. But okay, that's also a problem, right? Cleanliness is close to godliness, right? If we saw how things were made, we'd never eat, right? Anything processed, you would never eat. I was once somewhere, I saw how a what's it called, a tiny candy came out. I saw the whole process. Saw these vats overflowing, and won't say what else I saw there. And all of a sudden comes out this nice package at the end, this nice package of a candy. So someone there I was with says, you want to take a piece of candy souvenir? I was like, no, I'll pass. Right? People think kosher means it's clean. It means what's in it. The ingredients of kosher. You got to be a chemist, right? That's why they have a lot of chemists in these kosher organizations to know what goes in it, to see if it's really kosher or not. M&Ms finally became kosher. But you know what the problem with M&Ms were? Why they weren't kosher? People were astounded. People were totally astounded. They had a red ant. The red dye was made from a red ant. You can Google this. Yeah. It was made with a red ant. That's why it wasn't kosher. Someone says, not true. They would never do that. You know what goes into stuff we eat? Again, human hair can go into stuff we eat for protein. Human hair. How did I find out about this? Many years ago, when there was a problem with wigs coming from India, still a problem. Yeah, so I was sitting with my Rebbe in the rabbinical court there, and the kashrus organization from my Rebbe's rabbinical court was upstairs. Someone comes running down, and he says, "We just want all the rabbis to know all the hair we use in human, in food." All the human hair we use in food. I mean, it's not a huge percentage, small percentage for protein. Okay. All the hair we use comes from Korea. So they're all giving each other high fives and different things. I'm like, ew. I was like, you're telling me there's human hair in food? Human hair, what I eat with your rabbinic supervision, there's human hair in it? So one of the rabbis said to me, you want to know what went into the candy bar you just ate? It's like, so you guys don't care if we live or die. It's about money, right? They're all laughing. But what do they use human hair for? Even a small amount. What do they use it for? Protein. They use it for protein. Yeah. Again, small percentage. And then my Rebbe told me, my wife speak to him, she's asking about different things in whatever, in health. And she asked about soya stuff. Is that healthy? It's healthy. It's like that's the worst thing you could ever eat. So I was like, why? It says because one of the ingredients to make, now you have to understand soy. I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. Soy, 70% of all food has soy in it. Cereals, cookies, crackers, right? Just about everything you eat has soy in it, most things. Yeah. So Rebbe said, I don't know where he got this information from. I mean, where we got the information from, but what they inject something into the soya bean in order for it to grow, quicker, stronger, faster, so to speak. What do they inject? Anyone want to guess? What do they inject? They inject a part of a rat in there. Why a rat? High in protein. Now, this is a kashrus problem. This is a very serious kashrus problem. Why? Because if that's the main thing and it's giving it protein, so there's a axiomatic principle in kashrus that if it's called a mamid, something that keeps the thing together and keeps it strong and is the main thing, there's a kashrus axiom that says that a mamid is never batul. It never gets nullified. Now, you hear the problem? What does that mean? It never gets nullified. It means that if it never gets nullified, 70% of everything you eat, right, comes from soy. If 70% of what you eat comes from soy, and in soy itself, and the bean itself is something that's not kosher, how could you eat anything in this world today? 70% of all foods have soy in it. So I was like, wow, it's a great question. So I asked my Rebbe, I said, what's the heter? How is it permissible? He says you have to come on to another axiomatic principle in kashrus. And that is Zev. You put this in it, you put that in it, this causes this reaction. Now, there are two opinions according to this axiomatic principle. One opinion is Zev mutter. It's permissible. Yeah. Another axiomatic principle, other rabbinic authorities hold forbidden. I got two opinions over here. So he says you have to come on to that to say it's permissible. Otherwise, everything you eat would be treif. You wouldn't be able to eat it. Yeah. So after I heard that, and putting human hair in, made me think differently about food, but not that much differently. Yeah. Again, if I always say in my class on breakfast cereals, what blessing you need to make. If you knew what went into it and how it's made, you wouldn't touch it. You wouldn't touch it, right? What are you gonna do? People eat breakfast cereal for breakfast, right? Certainly in America, maybe other places also, they eat breakfast cereal. A lot of it, if you knew how it was made, you wouldn't touch it. You absolutely wouldn't touch it. Yeah, again, doesn't mean it's not kosher, right? The question is, what's the blessing on it? Because you could have part of the outer husk, of the shell of wheat, which is not there in a significant way, so it's not mizonos. Or it could be you have wheat in there, or rye or spelt or whatever, but it's there to hold the thing together, right? So therefore it's not used significantly. It's not used for taste. So you wouldn't make a blessing of mizonos, on it, but you have to know how it's made. You absolutely have to know how it's made. And as Kaufman would say, if you know how it's made, you wouldn't eat it. You wouldn't eat it. So, you have to, so back to our original thing here, animals have to be raised in a proper way also. You can't abuse them while you're raising them. Now, could it be, even in places places that ritually slaughter, couldn't it be they raise them in a way that they shouldn't? Yeah, could be. Doesn't mean you can't eat it, right? Veal is a very good example. You can get kosher veal. What's the problem? Right? It used to be, and probably, I don't know if it's changed or not, right? But as far as I know, probably not. And that is they keep they keep these animals, caged up, very small areas, right? So they can't get out and move a lot. Now, what's the purpose of doing that? Because the meat's more tender. Now, isn't that cruel? That's cruel, right? Even if it's cruel, keep in mind, even if it's cruel, doesn't mean you can't eat it. Now, it's a moral issue, not a kashrus issue. Kashrus wise, not a problem. If it's slaughtered properly, very good. Then I could eat it. Not a problem. Right? Tastes pretty good. Anyone who's eaten veal probably like it. If if you like meat. Very good. If not, right, what's the issue? It's cruel. It's cruel how they have them caged up. Okay, but it doesn't nullify the fact that it's kosher. If it's killed in a proper way, then fine. But a person would say, how could I eat it if it's killed if it's kept that way? Good. Very good point. Very, very good point. So there are people that will not eat it. They'll protest against it because of the way it's kept. Very good. Again, in the bigger scheme of things, is it really forbidden in general? If it's properly slaughtered, no, not a problem. You could eat it, right? Not an issue. Might be a moral issue not to eat it. Okay, right? There are people that will not eat it for that, for that reason. Why would I want to eat cockroaches? Spoke about that. What if someone likes something non-kosher? Well, becoming Jewish is important. Yeah, so I've had this issue with people also. They don't want to give up such food. So I'll tell you, they have things today that are, chemically produced, which probably kill you in the process. A person wants taste of bacon. Yes, they have these things called bacon bits. Probably have other things also, right? Tastes like bacon, right? It's all chemicals. So, if someone wants to keep kosher, whether they're doing it because they want to convert or they grew up a secular Jew, whatever, and they have to start keeping kosher. So, is it an issue? No, people would say, come on, you ate this, you ate that, how could you give it up? Now, what's the simple answer? Simple answer is because God said don't eat it. He doesn't say it's not good. Doesn't say it's not tasty, even the cockroach of the sea. Doesn't say it's not tasty. Can very well be tasty, but what's the problem? My Father in heaven says I can't eat it. Doesn't mean it doesn't taste good. Could very well taste good. Anyone ever say pork doesn't taste good? You don't have pork chops, doesn't taste good? No one's going to say it doesn't taste good, unless you don't like the taste of it. Right? Now, being Jewish is much more important. So again, I'll put on my funny George Burns glasses, my funny mustache. If I were playing God, and someone says, I'd love to keep kosher, and I've had some people say this. There are certain things I will not give up. I will not give up. Someone stayed in Noahide. I don't know what happened to him in the end. Stayed as Noahide because they don't want to give up shrimp. Okay. But the question is, how sincere are they in conversion? If God would come to you in a vision and say, you ain't eating shrimp. You want to be part of me? You want to have a connection? No shrimp. Now, isn't a desire to eat it? If a person likes it, sure. Person likes to eat, veal parmesan. Yeah. They like to eat cheeseburgers, other things. Okay. Now, if someone won't convert because of that, is that an issue? Is God going to look at them and wipe the floor with them later because they actually could have converted? This is something stupid. What, he can't give up a cheeseburger? They have fake cheese also. In the States, you can probably get fake bread on Passover. God forbid you might miss, bread on Passover. Yeah. You can get almost anything, that tastes like, like the treif itself. So if someone's really, missing something, there's something that's probably come out on the market that's kosher that they could eat that tastes similar. People, let's say, they like Oreo cookies. They finally came out, became kosher. M&Ms, became kosher. But there are plenty of imitations. People say it doesn't taste like the real thing. Right? So my question would be, That's really not a question. I'll just throw it out there. Right? My question would be, is God going to look down upon a person and say you could have converted and you just gave in to desire? You just wanted to eat shrimp? Now, what's the simple answer to that? Person can say, I don't have to convert. I have no obligation to convert. You can't force me to convert. True. Right? For the most part, that's true. Okay, but what if God sees deep down in your soul? Deep down in your soul, you really should be a Jew. You really should convert. And the fact is, as we say in Boston, you're too big of a wuss to give up. You're too big of a wuss to give it up. Right? To give up shrimp, to give up cheeseburgers. Is God going to hold that against you or not? Someone could tell me very simple, no. Who says you have to convert? No one says you have to convert. But if God sees deep down, you really could have been a proper Jew and you couldn't get that out of your system and whatever, that could be a problem. That could seriously be a problem, right? Isn't being Jewish more important than eating shrimp or lobster or clams or, veal parmesan or anything else or cheeseburger? I would think, yeah, it's much more important, right? Is God going to zap somebody if they're not willing to self-sacrifice to give it up? And it's a sacrifice in this generation. It's a sacrifice. They like eating these things. Yeah, it's a sacrifice. But if someone doesn't give it up, you're right. They shouldn't convert. Very good. They shouldn't convert, right? All being careful about aspects of kashrus at home, right? Or not would also be complicated. Apply only after conversion. Depends what's going on in the house. But again, when it comes to kashrus in general, a person could eat and do whatever they want in their house up until conversion, up until the day they go to the mikvah, up until seconds before they go in the mikvah. They can still go to McDonald's and do other things. Not a problem. I wouldn't tell someone to do it, per se, right? But they could, 100% they could. It's like a last fling. Well, go out, go out with a bang. Go out and enjoy things, before it's all forbidden. Now, again, why would I tell someone not to do it? Right? Probably actually be forbidden to tell someone not to do it. I shouldn't say they're obligated. They can do it. They can go eat and have their last cheeseburger and this and that before the convert. Doesn't affect them. Right? Rabbi made this very clear to me. Right? I said, you would tell people to do that? He said, right before they go to the mikveh, yes. He said, they Jewish yet? I said, no. They go to the mikveh yet? No. So they're not Jewish. Doesn't matter what they've done, preparation, this and that. Are they Jewish? Yes or no? No. I said, you would tell people to do that? He goes, what's the matter? You don't understand English? So I'm telling you, they're not Jewish. They could do it. Now, I have a hard time saying that, but there's nothing wrong with it. Back in the day, go to Arby's, right? Anyone in Boston knows what Arby's is. Go to Arby's. What's the problem? What would be the problem for a non-Jew right before going to the mikveh? Not a problem. Cheeseburgers, this, that, eat whatever you want. Not a problem. After conversion shouldn't be a problem. But I would think people are going to start keeping kosher before that. Before the last day. But technically, they don't have to. Technically, it's good to practice. I think it's definitely good to practice. But, obligation, they don't have to. Someone there points out, as I mentioned, right, you can get almost everything, that's not kosher in a kosher form, right? They got these things called, it's not shrimp, right? Anyone ever tasted shrimp? Tell me it's fish. Okay. But make it taste like shrimp. Okay. Yeah. It's not bacon, bacon bits, whatever. They have all these things. I haven't kept up with it, in the last number of years. But they have all these things. Not a problem. Not a problem. So again, I'm just throwing out the question. What would God say if someone said that? Right? I would think, again, my guess is as good as anyone's, but I would think there's going to be a claim against such a person because you can get everything. That's not a problem today. You can get everything. Taste exactly the way you want. And it's kosher. So why wouldn't they convert otherwise? But then you can tell me they don't have to. There's no obligation. Right? So they can do whatever they want. But yeah, it's kind of a lame excuse. I would think it's a lame excuse. If I were playing God, I'd rip them to shreds. I would, it's a good thing I'm not God, right? Rip them to shreds. Totally rip them to shreds. You're going to say, come on. because Oreos weren't, Oreo cookies weren't kosher. You're not gonna, can't give it up. Or you're not gonna give up these other things, right? So if you tell me back in the day, when I was becoming religious, these things started to come out, and now there's probably tons of them on the market. Who's got an excuse today? You wouldn't have that excuse. It's a lame excuse, right? But again, what could the other person claim? The person can claim, I don't know, who says I have to convert? Right? You're right. You don't have to convert. Very good. What if God sees deep down in your soul you really should have been Jewish and didn't? Yeah, that's a problem. That the Gemara speaks about. Right? But it's catch-22 because we're not looking for converts. You're right. But we're talking about God here. God knows the thoughts of man. He knows where we're holding deep inside. So if he sees the person could have done it, it's just their evil inclination or whatever, but they really could have done it and been a proper Jew. I don't know. Is he going to look the other way? Is he going to use that as an excuse and say, well, they don't have to convert. So if they don't have to convert, what's the big deal? I don't know. I find it kind of a lame excuse, but again, who knows? See what happens, see what happens in that world, but we don't know. Can someone ask, one second, I'll just deal with this. Somebody asks, can someone become spiritually apathetic while keeping kosher or being vegan? By doing other transgressions. So, yeah, there are, I'm learning about this now. There are 36 things a person can do to get spiritually cut off in this world. Being homosexual is one of them. Desecrating Shabbos is one of them. Right? Certain idolatry, right? Or idolatry is one of them. So yeah, there are other transgressions. Eating matzah on Passover. Sorry, eating chametz on Passover. Right? Get you spiritually cut off. Not doing bris milah, circumcision, get you spiritually cut off. Plenty of things. Right? Plenty of things that get you spiritually cut off. But you're asking about being apathetic. So let's say like this. Usually it's by what you eat that makes you apathetic. But I would say that the severity of sins can make someone apathetic also. In other words, Mishnah Pirkei Avos says in Ethics for Our Fathers, we'll get there one day. I don't know when, maybe about 102, right? We'll get there, and that the Mishnah says, mitzvah goreres mitzvah, avera goreres avera. Person does a mitzvah, wants to do more mitzvahs. Person transgresses, they want to transgress more. Right? So if a person transgresses, they open themselves up to transgress more. The more they transgress, the more, like the Rabbeinu Yonah says in the Gate of Repentance, Rabbeinu Yonah says once a person does something wrong, the person's going to shudder and scream, and I can't believe I did this, whatever. Second time it happens, same thing. Third time, same thing. Fourth time, a little bit less. Fifth time, a little bit less. Right? By the time they've done it the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th time, they're already thinking why it's a mitzvah. Right? So they're convincing themselves of what they're doing and why it's okay to do. Well, this person does it. This other person does it. So why shouldn't I do it? What people do doesn't mean it's right. They could be Orthodox Jews. They could be, they could be pretty learned people, right? But who says what they're doing is right? You're going to say, what, learned people? Can also make mistakes. For sure can make mistakes. But someone will say, if they can do it, I can do it. Who says? Right? Who says? So anytime you weaken the soul by giving into the body, remember, there's a conflict between body and soul. As we always say, the body wants you to go after the body and physical things, right? And you do that when it's wrong. You debase the body, you debase the soul. If you go according to the soul, you uplift the body, you uplift the soul, you keep Torah mitzvahs, very good. But there's a constant battle. So the weaker the person is in mitzvah observance, right, and they keep, transgressing at different levels, then that weakens the soul. Then that can make them apathetic. That can make them apathetic as well. Someone who desecrates Shabbos, there's a death penalty and you get spiritually cut off. When a person does it, they don't get zapped. Nothing happens to them. What do they think in the back of their mind? It's okay. There's an evil inclination for some people, something I have a hard time imagining, right? But there's a strong evil inclination for people on Shabbos to text. Now, you tell me texting isn't really writing, right? If you write on a computer, it's not really writing, okay? It's a rabbinic prohibition, okay? So now you tell me every time they write, it's not really writing, but it's still forbidden, okay? So this is an evil inclination I don't understand. If you're telling me they're addicted to the computer, they have to watch things, they have to hear the news, they have to whatever, one thing. But let's say they're not doing that. They're just texting. Just texting. Yeah. They don't see any repercussions from it. They don't feel repercussions from it. But what does that do, though? That weakens their observance of Shabbos. The desecration of Shabbos, according to everyone, even if it's on a rabbinic level, the desecration of Shabbos. No question. Certainly not in the spirit of Shabbos. And that could be a severe prohibition also, but we're not going to go there, right? Even in such a case, you want to say it's not really writing this and that. Isn't that a zilzal? Isn't that like scoffing to make fun of Shabbos? Not observing Shabbos properly. So what does that do? That makes you weaker in observance. The weaker it makes you in observance, the less you feel guilty about. The less you feel guilty about, that makes you apathetic. So again, it can just spiral very easily. Very, very easily. And the problem is that, they can see people around them doing it. No one says anything. Or even if they do, right? They're not holding. It's better they do that than do other things, maybe. But at the end of the day, anytime you transgress, any transgression, it weakens the person spiritually, right? The Rabbeinu Yonah says, beginning of the second gate, Rabbeinu Yonah says that even if a person transgressed a positive command, let's say he didn't put on tefillin today, but he's got an obligation, the guy's got an obligation to put on tefillin. Let's say he didn't do it. Okay. He didn't do it. Says the Rabbeinu Yonah, there's no positive command, saying the Shema, positive command. Let's say, keeping certain aspects of Shabbos, positive command. They didn't do it. He says, there's no positive command. I want to repeat this. There's no positive command that's not dependent on resurrection of the dead. Positive command. I'm not saying you were sick, you didn't put on tefillin. You didn't feel like putting on tefillin. For whatever reason, you didn't feel like doing it. Okay. You didn't feel like doing it. Doesn't that make the resolve weaker? But not just that. Rabbeinu Yonah says it's dependent on resurrection of the dead. That's how powerful it is. Oh, I just didn't do it today. I didn't feel like wrapping up. But there's that. Not a question what you felt like doing. You got to do it anyway, even if you don't feel like doing it. Still has a positive effect. Can still have a positive effect. Okay. But if a person over here says, it's no big deal, or something like that, can't that make them apathetic? The Gemara only talks about kosher food, as far as I understand. It's only about kosher food that's tintu mesoleh, that makes a person apathetic. But anything that a person does, it's going to spiritually get them cut off. Again, eating chametz on Passover, any leavened product on Passover, desecrating Shabbos, and different things can also make them apathetic. Because if they're getting spiritually cut off, that's what it means. It means they're apathetic. Right? All these things. Yeah. Someone asked, does it say something about drinking urine? No. Not that I'm aware. What's the effect? What's the effect? Um, right. So there's certain things they can't do with urine, obviously, right? Can't clean a shofar with it, right? That's for sure. Um, it is brought down though that the Gemara says that the Gemara Bechoros that says drinking urine um from a I think from a donkey. I think that's what it is. Yeah, it was an effective cure for jaundice. Yeah. Um. So whatever. There's the whole thing. Would we, if that would be true today, would you be allowed to do it? I don't know. I don't know why not. Um. Yeah, I'll look into it more, but I don't see why it should be an issue, right? Um. I don't see why that would be an issue. You might say, oh, it's disgusting, this and that, but it could be, some of the cures that Talmud speaks about in a lot of places does not apply today, right? They don't work today. Now the question is, doesn't mean they never worked, right? It could be just today, certain things might have changed, right? Certain things might have changed, and it doesn't have the same effect. Doesn't have the same effect. Now the question would be, I mean, it's not forbidden to drink urine, right? It doesn't say, it's necessarily, forbidden, if it cures certain things or whatever. But I have to look into it further. What, do we really hold that today or not? Um, um, so human hair is kosher. Yeah. Again, they use this protein, right? Small amount, right? It doesn't, there's nothing wrong with human hair, right? It doesn't make it non-kosher, right? They use it for protein, right? Yeah, it's kind of gross, but it's you know, it's kosher if the human hair is not, coming from India and it's worshipped, or is used for idolatry. That's a different issue, right? To even be permissible, to put it as protein, you can't use that hair, right? That was the point. You cannot use that hair coming from India. That would be using something for idolatry, and that would be forbidden. Um, which body parts of those Koreans does the hair come from? The hair on top of their head. That's what we're talking about. Talking about the hair on their head, no other places. Right? That's where the hair comes from. Um, 1 second. Yeah, someone says growing up they weren't allowed to eat any processed foods. Makes sense, right? Fruits, veggies, yeah. I've read soybean can mess with the hormones. They had a thing, actually, I did a little bit of research years ago. Powdered milk, right? Because the problem with our milk in general, that they gave animals hormones, right? And probably still give cows hormones, produce milk, right? That can cause all kinds of problems, right? Those hormones can cause all kinds of problems, right? They say in, I don't know, Southeast Asia and different places, cause women to get their periods earlier, other things. I want to try and prove that on powdered milk, not just regular milk. And the Rebbe's rabbinical court sort of like scoffed it off, right? They, you know, cow milk they can understand, but if you're talking about something that's powdered, right? They take the milk and they powder it, whatever. They make it into whatever, a powder. Who says it goes that far, right? That the hormones can have an effect that far. And in milk, if they're giving the cows hormones, yeah, it's a different issue, right? That's a different issue. Someone asked, I want to get this question. Someone asked, is Ger Tosha basically slave till 13 months, which point circumcision is needed? Ger Tosha doesn't apply anyway, right? Does not apply today because we don't have a Jubilee year. So Ger Tosha was somebody who lived amongst the Jewish people, and there was actually a mitzvah to sustain them, right? They couldn't necessarily be slaves, right? Wouldn't necessarily be slaves. But a ger toshav is very different than a ger tzedek. It's a totally different thing. That's a totally different thing, right? A ger toshav, is basically a Noahide, right? Essentially, they don't do idolatry, and some in the other Noahide laws, right? But they're living amongst you in the land. You have an obligation to support them. That's true. But it has nothing to do with a ger tzedek, proper convert, right? That's a Jew. A ger toshav is not a Jew, by any stretch. Also, a ger toshav has to go in front of rabbinical court to clear themselves a ger toshav, right? As the Rambam states clearly. Does not, I've mentioned this a number of times, does not apply to a Noahide. I think I mentioned this last night also in Pirkei Avos. Does not apply to a Noahide, right? No matter what anyone tells you, does not apply to a Noahide. A Noahide, if they want to make a declaration in front of Beis Din, in front of rabbinical court, they can. If they want to, okay. There are organizations, give them a plaque, make a nice frame, for it. Okay. So why would a person do it? Makes them feel good. Makes them feel good that, they're taking it seriously. They do it in front of rabbinical court. Is it good to do it in front of witnesses, to clear the Noahide laws in front of witnesses? Yes. Beyond that, does it mean anything? Doesn't mean anything. If it makes a person feel good, should they do it? They can do it. Do they have to do it in front of rabbinical court? No. If they feel the need to do it, okay. But imagine you walk in front of a rabbinical court, you tell a rabbi in the rabbinical court, yeah, I took on the Noahide laws, I did it in front of a rabbinical court. I said, very nice. Like, what else are they going to say? Yeah. Yeah, so I got in trouble for saying this. Probably got in trouble last night also, right? But it's not worth the paper it's written on. You want to do it. Makes you feel good, makes you feel stronger that you're taking it on. Okay. In the bigger scheme of things, right? That is worth value for some people. Okay. Other than that, it doesn't really mean much. Right? But don't let anyone tell you got an obligation to do it. Right? That is not true. I called someone out on it. They never retracted what they said. Right? Because they put on a video. They put on a video because I can read Hebrew and actually understand Hebrew. Right? But they quoted a Rambam saying that who has to go in front of a rabbinical court to declare these laws? It's not a Noahide. Doesn't say Noahide there. It says ger toshav. Ger toshav has that obligation. Anyway, it doesn't apply because we don't have a Jubilee year. It's connected to the Jubilee year. But I told this person, come out and retract what you said. He said, yeah, I know what I said. I said, okay, retract it. Don't mislead people and tell Noahides they have an obligation to do it because it's not true. I said, and you're quoting a Rambam, I would splice that out so people can't actually see it. Because if they actually see it, they're going to call you a fool for actually misreading it. Because it did not say Noahide. It said ger toshav, clear as day. Clear as day, it said ger toshav. So if a Noahide, again, wants to go in front of rabbinical court, they want to take on the Noahide laws, they can. Obligation? Absolutely not. It's only by a ger toshav. Now, someone feels good, they want that plaque, they want that frame, and they'll say they did it in front of a Beis Din, in front of a rabbinical court. Okay. Look nice on your wall, you did it. Very good. Yeah, it makes you feel good. Okay. Right? In the bigger scheme of things, not worth that much, but people say that's worth a lot to me. Okay. Not going to argue that. Fine. Person wants to do it. They can do it. Is it good to do it in front of witnesses anyway? Yes. Because it means they're taking it more seriously. Very good. But there's one thing, keep in mind. Keep in mind when you take on these laws, even if you don't verbalize it, yeah, you got to think, I'm keeping the Noahide laws, as the Rambam says, because God commanded Adam who passed it down to Noah. It's a divine command. And it got solidified at Mount Sinai. Now, most people are not aware of this. So I don't know if these other groups are telling you, if you're going to go in front of a rabbinical court, you have to mention the fact that God actually said to Adam, pass it down to Noah. That's pretty crucial according to the Rambam. The Rambam states clear you have to do that. You have to say it's coming from God. Otherwise, it's invalid. Because if someone asked me yesterday, if a person says, I came to Noahide laws, but, my own volition, my own understanding, very good. That's not what the Rambam says. That's not good enough. It has to be because God commanded you to do it. Right? says explicitly in the Rambam, the Laws of Kings. Someone says, a ger toshav can eat animal dying without slaughter, right? Not permitted to a ger tzedek, right? Because a ger tzedek is a Jew, right? A Jew has to eat ritually slaughtered food, right? Right, but a toshav not a regular ger, again, right? There's a big difference. Who says the ger tzedek lives in the land? Who says the convert lives in the land of Israel? Ger toshav lives in the land, lives amongst Jews, right? In the land, totally different things. Can a ger toshav eat non-kosher? Sure. No difference, right? He's allowed to. Right? He's allowed to. Keeping kosher, certainly no obligation. Again, according to Kli Yakar, doesn't do anything for them. It's a way to explain a ger toshav is not servitude. Or 7 years and he's free. Right? A ger toshav, again, let's get very clear here. A ger toshav is somebody what's a ger toshav over here? Ger toshav lives amongst Jews. Who says it means he's a slave? Right? Doesn't really mean doesn't necessarily mean he's a slave over here. They accept upon themselves in front of 3 Torah scholars, like we said, right? You have to go in front of a beis din, right? In front of 3 people, not to worship idolatry, right? Or they accept the 7 Noahide laws. And some say none of these are ger toshav, is whoever accepts upon himself all the commandments except not to eat nevela, right? Nevela means a animal that dies by itself, not properly. It's not slaughtered, ritually slaughtered. So really, it doesn't seem too much difference between a Noahide and a ger toshav. But who says they're a slave? Right? I don't necessarily think it means they're a slave, right? It means they're a foreigner in the land, right? A foreigner in the land means they're living amongst the Jews. Doesn't necessarily mean they're slave, right? And even if they were a slave is a totally different thing, right? Slave gets freed after 7 years, right? It's not a ger toshav. Ger toshav can be freed forever, right? Who says he has to be a slave, right? I don't know he has to be a slave. A slave is a different thing. It's a totally different thing. But seemingly, I'm going to delve into this more, what I'm learning now at some point, and that is that, not much difference, between a ger toshav and a Noahide. Similar, right? Very similar, in that sense. It's just that if you're talking about a ger toshav has to go in front of a rabbinical court. For sure has to go in front of a rabbinical court. To accept the laws upon him, and he's going to live amongst the Jewish people in the land. That's, it'd be no different necessarily than, a Noahide. But if a Noahide's a ger toshav, he has to make a declaration in front of the rabbinical court. Someone here mentions eat meat because I believe it's required, but it's not necessary for my tongue. Okay. Right? Is a requirement to eat meat? Yes. Shabbos, person should eat meat. On festivals, the person should eat meat. Right? The Gemara says, "Ain't simcha ela basar v'yayin." Right? It comes to a festival, there's no greater joy eating meat or drinking wine. Now, a person says, "I don't like meat." Okay, but a person has to be very careful here. Not liking meat and saying it's cruel to kill animals for meat are 2 totally different things. Right? The latter is heresy. If a person says they don't like meat, okay. Not everyone likes meat. Not everyone likes meat. Or the texture of it, or it makes them feel heavy, whatever. Okay. Yeah. But to say, eating meat is cruel to the animal, that's another thing. That's a whole other thing. That's heresy. Because God says, I allow you to eat meat. You should eat on Shabbos. You should have meat on festivals. Now, what if a person doesn't like it? Yeah. Do you have to force feed them to eat it? No. They don't get the mitzvah of eating meat on Shabbat. Okay. There are people who don't like meat. I have a hard time understanding that, but there are people. There are people who don't like meat. It doesn't mean, if you don't eat meat, you're not a good Jew. It doesn't mean that. Right. But, even a person wants to be a vegan, okay. But again, being a vegan, spoken about this a number of times, being a vegan can mean that a person's a heretic because they go way too far. Basically saying it's cruel to kill animals for their meat. That is not a Torah concept. God allows us to eat meat. Right? He allows us to eat meat. Tell me before Torah is given a higher level, see vegetables and fruits and all that. Could be, but he allows us to eat meat. Yeah, a person doesn't like meat. Okay. So they don't get the mitzvah of eating meat. Especially on a festival or on Shabbos. Right? You can eat fish. You don't like fish. Okay, so you eat a mixture of things. Somebody asks, one second. During conversion, no one comes to your house to check your kitchen. If a person turns over want to be kosher, they should have someone check it, or kosher it, because most people won't know what they're doing. For a number of cases, rabbis come in and kosher the kitchen. Right? It wouldn't make sense to do it until after conversion anyway, because you're going to trafe everything up anyway, whatever you cook. Right? In other words, you could have, all the kosher ingredients. They could be top, quality kosher ingredients. Doesn't matter. You cook it from beginning to end. It doesn't. A Jew can't eat it. Right? You can eat it. Any non-Jew can eat it. A Jew can't eat it. If a Jew had a process in the cooking, turn on the flame high enough, stirred it a number of times, okay. But if a non-Jew cooked it from beginning to end, right? So a non-Jew could eat it, a Jew can't eat it. So you're going to trafe up everything anyway, right? All you're not going to be kosher, right? Totally not going to be kosher. So therefore, so therefore, it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense to make it kosher at that point. That's what I would say. So therefore, you can practice. You can have someone come in and kosher everything. The second you cook something, it's going to make it non-kosher. So it wouldn't make sense to do it till after conversion, right? At least to know what you need to do to keep kosher, right? At least practice for sure. That someone should do. How many gates are there? The gate of repentance, there are 4, I think. I think there are 4 gates altogether. What's the difference between regular bread and mazonos bread? Good question. They say that mazonos bread has like fruit water in it. Has fruit water in it, but so therefore, they want to say it's mazonos. But the problem is people would say that it looks like regular bread. If it looks like regular bread, smells like regular bread, it's bread, right? Especially if you use it like bread. So who cares if there's fruit juice in it or there's water with flour? If you use it like bread, so you have to wash. It's got the status of bread, right? I don't understand the concept of mazonos bread, or Abby doesn't understand the concept of it either. It's bread. Looks like bread, smells like bread, right? Other people will say no because of certain things they put in it. Maybe it's got the status of mazonos, but it's bread. Essentially, it's bread, right? It's hard to hear that argument, right? Essentially, it's bread. So I would tell you, if you're anywhere it says mazonos on it, you wash. You wash like it's regular bread because you're using it like regular bread. I think you add more than water, juices. Yeah, it doesn't matter, but it doesn't change it. Doesn't change anything. Even if you add fruit juice and other things, it's bread. Essentially, it's bread. So even if it's got top rabbinic supervision on it, you should wash. You should definitely wash. Right? I would say you should definitely wash. Soybean enhances production of estrogen. Okay. Parents are going to powdered milk. Powdered milk's the whole thing. Again, I couldn't prove, or they kind of laughed at me, but I couldn't prove powdered milk had the same effect as regular milk. Yeah. But if it has hormones in it and they just make it in a powdered form, what should be the difference? Does it take out the stuff that, causes other problems? I don't know. Right. I found, again, it's many years ago, so I can't say, but I would think, it could have the same effect. They didn't think so. They think on regular milk it could have an effect. Yes. Definitely could have an effect with the hormones. Very good. Yeah. But powdered milk to go that far, they didn't want to go that they didn't want to go that far. But yeah, it can cause all kinds of problems. What is Garatosha? I don't know. Let's see if you spelled it right. I don't know. Didn't even come up on Google, so you gotta spell it better. Was Bilam a Noahide? He was no. Why was he a Noahide? Why would you say he's a Noahide? He was an evil non-Jew. I definitely don't think he was a Noahide by any stretch. Yeah, he was the reincarnation of Loveland, as the Arizal says. Rise of Glory says, I think in Shar Gilguli, right? I think he says over there he's the reincarnation of Lavan. But even so, you'd have to ask the question. Everybody, Avram, Isaac, Avram, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, and all their kids, were they Noahides or Jews? It's the whole question, right? Bilam, I don't think there's any question. He was a non-Jew, right? He kept the Noahide laws. I tend to doubt it. Someone says to my son, then I'm going to teach him Torah. Yeah, but what he does is up to him. Okay. Yeah, when they're already grown adults, kind of hard to teach them. They don't want to listen, right? Or something explained to him in that way, right? In a better way. You can teach them belief in one God. You can teach them Shema Yisrael. Teach them why the Torah said it's only one God, right? And why you can't believe in idolatry, right? It makes sense logically if you would read Duty of the Heart, the first gate, which no one ever learns, right? Which is the gate of God's unity, proves beyond the shadow of a doubt logically why there's belief in one God. Why can there only be belief in one God? Right? Again, it's not so easy to go through, but I would start there, right? Belief in one God and why you have to follow what He says, right? That'd be a good place to start. But I would tell you, if you start in this late and your kids are older, it's very, very hard. It's very, very hard. You have an obligation to still educate them. It's true. That is true. But the older they are, the harder it is. I'm not even talking if they're, young adults, i.e., 18, 19, 20 or older, right? I'm even talking when they're 9, 10, 11. If they've already been indoctrinated by society, very hard. Very, very hard, teach them, about belief in one God. If they're taught when they're much younger, it's a lot easier. If they're taught when they're older, when no one else is doing it, no one else is around them, and everyone's doing the same stupid thing, that's going to be a lot harder. I'm not saying you don't have an obligation. You can try, right? But it's saying that, the deck is stacked, against you. You do your best, however, wherever they take it, however they take it, if they decide to be a pagan, it's their choice, right? It's definitely their choice. We don't, no one's a cookie cutter. Yeah, a person can give their kids the best Jewish education. No guarantee they'll come out the way they want. No guarantee they'll come out religious either. We have a good track record, right? But again, there's no guarantee. Torah's not an inheritance, so to speak. But if you're working with someone much later, much older, they've seen everything around them. How open are they really going to be? I'm not saying you can't try. You can definitely try, but it's going to be much harder. Definitely much harder. I would think when they're older. What happened to Noahide yeshivas? Yeah, really could have assimilated into Jewish ones with the gift of Torah. What happened? Yeah, so that's a little bit different, but similar thing. It says that Abraham and Sarah made all these non-Jews convert, right? They preached to the masses. Good question. How they're allowed to get them to go against idolatry. It's a good question. But what happened to all the converts, all the nefashos, all the souls they made in Haran when they were there? What happened? What happened to them? It's a good question. You don't hear anything about them. You hear nothing about them. What's the answer? So when the master goes away, when the main teacher goes away, you don't replace him, then what's going to happen to everybody else? That's what happened. Abraham left. Now you could ask. I mean, you really can't ask the question, why did he leave? Because God told him to leave. God told him to leave. But, if you leave the infrastructure without a guide, without a master, what's going to happen to everybody else? Seemingly that's what happened. The leader left and everything went to pot afterwards. Right? So you could ask, well, how strong was his influence? His influence is very strong. Very, very strong, right? Masses, right? The masses came to want to learn Torah from him. But you see, it didn't stick. See, it didn't stick because the master left. Yeah, the main teacher left. That's seemingly what happened because you don't hear anything about the students. You don't hear very much about the Yeshiva of Shem and Aver either, right? Where Yaakov learned for 14 years. They had individuals come in. It wasn't the masses by any stretch. And it petered out. Why did it peter out? Because I guess they had trouble passing it down or having other people give it over. Right, that people have come out against Noahide communities. If they're going to be Noahide communities, might as well make them Jews, right? Because you got to be careful what to teach them and this and that. That's true, right? That is true. But if there's proper guidance, could be done. Could very well be done, right? If it's done in the right way. Now, other people would say no. Other people would say you're gonna, go over your boundaries over here, overstretch your boundaries, teach some things that they're not allowed to be taught. They're going to do things. Why don't they just become Jews? It won't work, right? That's the claim. It won't work. I'm not convinced it won't work. We need someone who knows what they're doing to do it, to guide them, to be there, to do it in a proper way. The other problem is that you have people spread out all over the world. So you don't have them, in Jewish areas. That's also a problem because they're not concentrated in different places. There are a few Noahide places in the world. Okay. Yeah, there could be a lot more. I think there definitely could be a lot more doing the right thing if there was proper guidance and proper will. Proper will among people. Now, the only way you're going to pull that off is that they need to put money on the table. Do it. Which, some Noahides don't want to do. Nothing they don't have. Saying you get, if you had enough people together, I'm not talking about tons of money. You have a place where they can come pray, where they can come learn. I'm saying you have to buy a building, right? You have to place somewhere so people can come and hang out, whatever. The problem is numbers. That's the problem. They're all over the place. Someone told me, the closest Noahide to them is like 400 miles away or 350 kilometers or whatever. Yeah, it's far away. Most people are not concentrating in one area. If you got people to move to an area, where it's within striking distance of an Orthodox synagogue, could work. But you need someone someone who knows what they're doing to be able to do it, pull it off. Is it possible? I think it's possible. I think it's possible, but the problem is I think people spread out too far. I think people spread out too far. If you had a concentration of people, even in certain places where they have this, I mean, how many families they have there? 40, 30? But they're able to maintain it. It's talking tons of money. But they're able to maintain it. So you need people to do it. You need goodwill. Put your money where your mouth is. I'm not saying it's got to be a lot of money, but if you wanted to succeed, that's what you need to do. But you can't be just 2 people or 10 people. You need a nice sized population. You need 30, 40 families, a good start. It's a good start. It's a good start. Even 20 families would be a good start. The problem is, as we said, they're all over the place. Right? They're not concentrated in one area. That's a problem. Right? So, what are you going to do? Have, people move? Could be doable. Certain places, maybe it could be doable. Right? But again, the claim is against it is if they're going to start doing things, they're going to be more like, Jews, but, you can't straddle the line. I get it. Makes sense. I don't think it's impossible if you have somebody who knows what they're doing to teach them. Right? That's the whole point of teaching, teaching Noahides and Noahide laws. Gave class a couple years ago on that. Right? And there's a group teaching Noahides to teach other Noahides. Very good. I mean, you need rabbinic guidance to do that. Very good. Right? Just because they took the course and they passed it doesn't mean, they can do things on their own. Right? They need proper guidance. Very good. Right? But it makes sense for them to teach their own people also. Right? But the problem's going to be numbers. Numbers. I don't. Again, I would say I don't think it's impossible. If you have the right person doing it, I don't think it's impossible. You got to be careful though. You got to be careful what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. Right? You don't want them to cross that barrier, cross that line. But I would say in this case, just like anything else, if the leader goes away and they don't have someone to replace that leader, then then that place is going to die eventually. Right? It's going to get weaker and weaker because you don't have a proper leader. And then, and then even if you do, maybe someone wants to take more power and then they split and, then the whole thing goes apart. Right? But again, I don't think it's necessarily impossible. Other people, I've heard speak strongly say, yeah, it not only is it impossible, it should never be done. Because they're going to straddle that line and do things that Jews do and whatever, and they're going to go towards that, so they might as well just convert. There's no point to doing it. I disagree. I don't think it's true. If it's done right, and again, you need someone with proper knowledge to do it. But if it's done right, it can be done. Right? I will stick to that. Hasn't been done yet. I mean, it has been done in a few places, but could it be done on a bigger scale? Could be. I don't think it's impossible. You just have to have enough people to do it. You have to have people in different places to do it. And you're just lacking numbers because, again, people are spread out. Yeah. Any other questions here? Yeah, any other question? Let's see. Yeah, or any general questions? Got a lot of general questions here. All right, I guess if there's no question, I'm going to stop here only because if I start the next verse, then whatever, go much further. So not going to do that. Do that probably next week. So anyone who does have any questions, I do this every Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman. Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on Facebook, orthodoxconversion.com, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on the Torah portion of the week, which I haven't done in a while. Q&As, ethics for our fathers, Book of Leviticus. You want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN